The war had dragged on for 8 long years. To the citizens of Earth, it seemed as though the stars themselves had turned hostile. The Sovereigns, a formidable alliance of 3 fierce species from the darkest corners of the galaxy, had cast a long shadow over the Milky Way. Born from harsh, unforgiving worlds, these species had come together to assert their might and bend the galaxy to their will. The Sovereigns were ruthless, technologically advanced, and unified by their hunger for power and domination. They had already subjugated countless worlds, their conquests a grim testament to their strength and cruelty. They left ruin in their wake, and for those unlucky enough to survive, only enslavement awaited. Sovereigns comprised 3 distinct species, each as formidable as the others. The Raskar, a reptilian race with a talent for military strategy and a thirst for conquest, were the primary force of the Sovereign armies. Their scaled armor shimmered in the dark of space, a terrifying reflection of the cold, calculating minds that wore it. Then there were the Vosses, a species of towering, cybernetically enhanced humanoids, whose home planet was a wasteland filled with toxic gases and deadly radiation. They were masters of technology, their war machines more terrifying than the monsters of legend. Lastly, the Chaska, an insectoid species with hive minds and an insatiable appetite for expansion, brought with them the relentless swarm, their sheer numbers and fearsome agility overwhelming any defense. To the rest of the galaxy, the Sovereigns were a symbol of dread. The galactic powers watched with indifference as world after world fell to their might, each conquest cementing the Sovereigns' grip on the galaxy. Earth had initially stayed out of the fight, hoping to remain unnoticed. But the Sovereigns were not interested in peace or neutrality. To them, every world was a potential conquest, and Earth's rich resources, abundant life, and strategic position made it a prime target. The Earth Federation, a newly formed coalition of nations, had tried to mount a defense, but against the Sovereigns' combined might, their fleets were little more than targets in a shooting gallery. For years, Earth's fleets fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Battles were lost, colonies were abandoned, and millions died. Earth's position in the galaxy seemed ever more precarious. The galaxy, already fractured and lawless, offered no help. Every species fended for itself, and the Sovereigns preyed upon their isolation. But Earth scientists, engineers, and leaders had not given up hope. They worked tirelessly, day and night, in secret underground facilities on Mars, hidden beneath the red planet's rocky surface, to develop a weapon that could turn the tide of the war. Their answer was a breakthrough unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen: EF Slipstream. The Slipstream was more than just a battleship. It was a marvel of engineering, a sleek, black vessel that seemed to absorb the light around it, making it almost invisible against the starry backdrop of space. But its real strength lay not in its appearance, but in its capability. For years, Earth's brightest minds had theorized about the existence of other realities, dimensions layered atop their own, and in a stroke of brilliance, they had figured out how to breach them. The Slipstream could slip between realities, phasing in and out of existence, untouchable to any weapon. One moment it was there, real and solid, launching a barrage of plasma and railgun fire into enemy formations. The next, it was gone, slipping into the thin membrane between dimensions, where no energy or projectile could touch it. It was a ghost, phantom, appearing and disappearing at will, turning battles into mazes of confusion for the Sovereign's warships. The breakthrough had come from the most unlikely of places. A young physicist, Dr. Mei Tanaka, working with a team of theoretical scientists, had accidentally discovered a method to create stable rifts between dimensions while experimenting with quantum entanglement. It was a eureka moment, flash of insight that would change the course of the war. The news spread like wildfire through the Mars facility. Generals and admirals, scientists and engineers, everyone suddenly saw a glimmer of hope, something they hadn't felt in years. On the red sands of Mars, deep beneath its iron-rich surface, a ship was born. The Slipstream, the first of its kind, built in absolute secrecy in the underground manufacturing labs. Its construction was a Herculean effort, collaboration of Earth's greatest minds. The ship was designed to be fast, nimble, and most importantly, untouchable. It had to be, for it was Earth's last hope. Every weld, every circuit, every line of code was built with urgency, knowing that the survival of their species depended on it. As the final components were assembled and the last panels of its hull were sealed, the leaders of the Earth Federation knew they were on the verge of something monumental. The ship was ready to launch, its engines humming with power from an experimental interdimensional drive, a creation born from a fusion of quantum mechanics and dark energy manipulation. Its weapon systems were unparalleled, its hull made from a newly synthesized alloy that could withstand the most intense blasts. It was equipped with stealth technology, a cloaking device that masked its energy signature, making it invisible to enemy sensors even when it phased into normal space. The Slipstream's maiden voyage was planned with meticulous precision. A fleet of sovereign warships had been detected on the edge of the solar system, scouting for a breach in Earth's defenses. They were unaware of the new battleship lurking just outside of their sensor range, hidden in a fold of spacetime. Admiral Elias Quinn, a battle-hardened leader who had lost more friends and comrades than he cared to remember, stood on the bridge, Slipstream. He watched the display screens as the Sovereign fleet drew nearer. "Engage the drive," he ordered, his voice calm but filled with an undercurrent of steel. "Drive engaged, sir," replied the chief engineer, a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead betraying the tension of the moment. The ship hummed, a low, almost imperceptible vibration that seemed to resonate in the bones of every crew member. The Slipstream flickered for a moment, and then it was gone, phased out of existence, traveling through dimensions. For a few heart-stopping seconds, the bridge was filled with an eerie silence, the hum of the ship's engines the only sound. And then, as suddenly as it had vanished, it reappeared, dropping back into reality, directly behind the Sovereign fleet. The enemy ships did not even have a chance to react. The Slipstream's weapons blazed to life, and in a matter of moments, 3 of the Sovereign warships were reduced to burning hulks. The rest of the fleet scrambled, their commanders barking orders in confusion and fear. The Slipstream phased out again, phantom, untouchable, and deadly. From the bridge of his command ship, a Rasker commander snarled in frustration, his clawed hands gripping the edge of his control panel. "What is this? What kind of trickery?" He shouted to his crew, but there were no answers, only the frantic beeping of alarms and the crackling of damaged communications. Earth's newest battleship had struck, and for the first time in 8 long years, there was fear in the eyes of the Sovereigns. Earth had been bloodied, but it was not beaten, and now it had the weapon to strike back. The Slipstream vanished once more into the folds of spacetime, a silent promise that the tide of war was about to turn. The Slipstream glided through the folds of spacetime, a phantom weaving through the infinite dimensions. For hours, the ship had been traveling beyond the bounds of normal reality, slipping between layers of existence, invisible and intangible, any who might be watching. On the bridge, the tension was palpable. The crew, though trained and prepared, felt the weight of their mission pressing down on their shoulders. They were Earth's hope, and now they were about to make their presence known to the galaxy in a way that would change everything. The Sovereign's latest target was the Tharaxians, a warrior race that had been holding out against the Sovereign's relentless assaults for years. The Tharaxians were a proud species, their history marked by survival against all odds. With deep-set eyes and skin that glistened with a natural metallic sheen, they were a force to be reckoned with, even if their technology lagged behind that of their enemies. The Tharaxians had fought bravely and ferociously, using every scrap of metal and ounce of blood they had to resist the Sovereign's relentless onslaught. But they were on the brink of surrender. Their homeworld, Thara, a rocky planet with great cliffs and deep ravines, had been battered by bombardments. Their cities were in ruins, their people starving, and their once mighty fleet reduced to a ragtag band of warships. Earth had learned of the Tharaxians' plight through intercepted transmissions. What caught their attention was the Tharaxians' unwavering will to fight, survive, to resist, to make the Sovereigns pay for every inch of ground. It was a defiance that resonated with Earth's own struggle, a spark of hope in a galaxy full of indifference. Any species was worth saving, it was the Tharaxians. Believing that this could be the beginning of an alliance, a unified stand against the Sovereigns, Earth's leadership, made a bold decision. They would send the Slipstream to Thara to assist the Tharaxians in repelling the latest Sovereign attack. It was a gamble, a high-stakes mission that could cement a partnership or lead to catastrophic failure. As the Slipstream neared the coordinates of the Tharaxian system, Admiral Elias Quinn stood on the bridge, his hands clasped tightly behind his back, his gaze focused on the viewport. Around him, his officers moved with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine, their faces lit by the dim glow of their consoles. "Status report," he called out, voice steady. "Approaching Tharaxian space, sir," replied the navigation officer. "We're detecting multiple Sovereign vessels in the system, currently in low orbit over Thara." Quinn nodded, his mind racing through the battle plan. "How many?" 14 ships, sir. A mix of Raskar frigates, Voss's heavy cruisers, and one Chaska command carrier. They've formed a blockade around the planet and are beginning orbital bombardment. Quinn's jaw tightened. "They've begun the attack," he muttered. "All right, let's give them a surprise they'll never forget. Prepare to drop into real space." The Slipstream's engines thrummed with power as it prepared to re-enter the familiar dimension. A slight tremor ran through the ship, and then, in a flash of light, the battleship materialized above Thara, emerging from the shadows of interdimensional space like a predator from the depths of the ocean. The Sovereign fleet, poised to unleash destruction upon the Tharaxian homeworld, suddenly found itself staring at a ship they had never seen before. A black silhouette that seemed to flicker in and out of existence, its hull absorbing the starlight around it. On the bridge of the Chaska command carrier, the Sovereign fleet commander, a Voss named Marshal Tarth, barked orders, his deep voice echoing across the deck. "What is that vessel? How did it breach our perimeter?" "No readings, sir," an officer shouted. "It appears and then it doesn't. Our sensors can't lock onto it." "Impossible," Tarth snarled. "No ship can evade our scanners. Open fire. All ships engage." The Sovereign fleet moved with ruthless precision. Frigates launched volleys of plasma torpedoes. The heavy cruisers fired streams of high-energy lasers. Command carrier unleashed a barrage of kinetic projectiles, each one capable of tearing through armor and shields alike. But the Slipstream was already gone, slipping back into interdimensional space. The torpedoes passed through empty space where it had been a moment before. Lasers cut through the void, hitting nothing but the cold vacuum. Kinetic projectiles whizzed past, disappearing into the darkness. The Slipstream reappeared behind the lead frigate, its weapon systems blazing to life. Railguns fired, their rounds accelerated to near light speed. Slamming into the Sovereign vessel with devastating force, the frigate shuddered under the impact, its shields collapsing, hull buckling. Moments later, it exploded, fiery blossom in the cold void of space. "Where did it go?" Tarth roared, panic creeping into his voice. "Find it, track it." But the Slipstream was already moving, phasing in and out of reality, its form flickering like a ghost. It dropped a communication beacon, which remained anchored in normal space, broadcasting a message across all frequencies. "To the Tharaxians, we are the EF Slipstream. We are here to help, engaging the Sovereign fleet." On the Tharaxian surface, amidst the smoke and rubble, the defenders heard the transmission. A spark of hope ignited in their hearts. For the first time in years, they were not alone. Reinforcements had arrived. Back in orbit, the Sovereigns continued to fire, their attacks increasingly erratic. "We can't get a fix on it," another officer yelled. It's phasing in and out. Our weapons are useless." The Slipstream flickered into existence once more, this time directly above the Chaska command carrier. With precision targeting, it unleashed a barrage of ion missiles, aimed at the command carrier's engines and communications array. The explosions ripped through the hull of the carrier, and the great insectoid ship shuddered, its lights flickering as systems went offline. Panic spread through the Sovereign fleet. They had never faced a weapon like this, an enemy that could vanish and reappear at will. The Raskar frigates scrambled, trying to form a defensive perimeter. They were too slow. The Slipstream weaved between them, striking from every direction, its weapons cutting through their armor like paper. Another frigate exploded, then a cruiser, its engines blazing as it spiraled out of control. "Withdraw," Arth shouted, his voice a mixture of rage and desperation. "We're being picked apart. Fall back. regroup at the secondary coordinates. Remaining Sovereign ships hesitated, then began to turn, their engines flaring to life as they made a hasty retreat. But the Slipstream wasn't finished. It surged forward, targeting the retreating vessels with ruthless precision. Another cruiser erupted in a brilliant burst of flame, then a frigate. The Sovereign fleet was in shambles, their formation broken, their command carrier disabled. Of the 14 ships that had begun the assault, only 3 escaped, their engines burning hot as they jumped to faster-than-light speed, fleeing into the void. Admiral Quinn stood on the bridge of the Slipstream, watching as the last of the Sovereign ships disappeared. His heart was racing, but he kept his face calm, composed. "Damage report?" "Minor, sir," replied his tactical officer. "Their weapons couldn't touch us." "Good." Quinn nodded. "And the Tharaxians?" "The beacon is transmitting. We should receive a response shortly." Quinn took a deep breath. "Open a channel as soon as they respond. Let's see if we can turn this victory into something more." The crew waited in silence, the Slipstream drifting above the battered planet below. The message was out. Now, all they could do was wait. Would the Tharaxians accept their help? Would this be the beginning of an alliance? A turning point in the war? Only time would tell. The atmosphere on the bridge of the Slipstream was thick with anticipation. The Tharaxians had received their message, and now, finally, a response came. A flickering hollow projection of a Tharaxian appeared before Admiral Quinn. The figure was tall and imposing, with metallic skin that glinted under the lights, deep-set eyes that seemed to hold centuries of battle and survival. This was Emperor Zaros, the ruler of the Tharaxians. "Humans of Earth," the Emperor's voice rumbled through the communicator, deep and resonant. "I am Emperor Zaros of Thara. You have proven your strength against the Sovereigns today, and for that I am intrigued. I request a face-to-face meeting. You will land at our capital, Varthol, and we shall see if you are as strong in spirit as you are in battle." Admiral Quinn nodded, hiding the small smile of satisfaction that crept to his lips. "We accept, Emperor Zaros. Our shuttle will be on its way shortly." The preparations for the away team were quick and efficient. Thara's atmosphere, while breathable, had a lower oxygen concentration than Earth's. The team wore compact oxygen supply units, small devices clipped to their noses, providing supplemental air to keep them from feeling the strain. They donned sleek tactical uniforms but avoided full spacesuits. This was to be a diplomatic mission as much as a strategic one. Quinn led the team himself. Accompanied by his executive officer, Commander Arya Voss, and 2 elite Marines, the shuttle, streamlined and battle-ready, descended through Thara's orange-tinted sky, engines humming with controlled power. As they broke through the clouds, the capital city of Varthol came into view. It was a city of spires and fortresses, hewn from the rock of the great cliffs that defined the planet's landscape. The buildings shimmered in the light, their surfaces covered in reflective metals and alloys that seemed to pulse with an inner energy. The shuttle landed on a vast platform that jutted out over a canyon, guarded by a contingent of Tharaxian warriors. They stood in disciplined rows, each one clad in armor that gleamed with the same metallic hue as their skin, their faces obscured by helmets with narrow visors. The Tharaxians were a warrior people, and their very posture radiated strength and readiness for battle. Admiral Quinn and his team disembarked, immediately feeling the thinner air of Thara. The oxygen units hummed softly as they began their steady supply. The Tharaxian escort led them through the imposing gates of a citadel, its walls adorned with the symbols of the Tharaxian clan. They were taken through a series of chambers, each one grander than the last, until they reached a great hall where Emperor Zaros awaited them. The emperor was seated on a throne of dark metal, carved with the intricate designs of his people's history, battles, conquests, and the struggles of their long fight against the sovereign. His eyes were keen, and his metallic skin reflected the light in a way that made him look both ancient and ageless. "Admiral Quinn," Zaros began, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 wars. "You come here as a warrior, but also as a diplomat. Tell me, why should we trust you? Why should the Tharaxians consider an alliance with Earth, a planet we have never met until today?" Quinn stood tall, meeting the Emperor's gaze. "Because we fight for the same reasons, Emperor Zaros. We fight for survival, for freedom, and for the right to exist without the chains of the sovereigns around our necks. We know your people have fought bravely against them, and so have we. The sovereigns are ruthless, but they are not invincible. Together we can strike at them, weaken them, and show the galaxy that resistance is not futile. Quinn gestured to a tactical display he brought with him, activating it with a flick of his wrist. The hologram lit up, showing a star map of the nearby systems. We know of a Sovereign Outpost near your home world. It's a critical supply point used to coordinate their raids on your remaining defenses. If we hit it hard and fast, we can cut off a significant portion of their supply line and communication network. The Slipstream will lead the assault, knocking out their defenses. Your warriors will board and capture the command center, gather intelligence, and plant charges to destroy the installation once we've extracted what we need. Zero studied the display, his eyes narrowing. A bold plan. But what makes you think we can trust you to lead this attack? Your ship is powerful, yes, but trust is earned in blood. Quinn nodded. I understand, Emperor. Allow us to prove ourselves. Let this mission be our test. If we succeed, it could mark the beginning of something greater. An alliance, a partnership to stand against the Sovereign. If we fail, then you lose nothing more than you risk now. Zeros was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. We shall send 4 of our ships with yours. Our warriors will lead the boarding parties. But know this, human, we do not tolerate weakness. If you fail us, there will be no second chances. Quinn bowed his head slightly in respect. We won't fail. Combined fleet of the EF Slipstream and 4 Tharaxian warships approached the Sovereign Outpost under the cover of the Slipstream's interdimensional phase. The outpost hung in the void, a massive structure of dark metal, bristling with weaponry and sensors. It was a small fortress in space, but the Slipstream was a ghost in the night. Prepare to drop into real space, Quinn ordered, his voice calm but firm. All hands, battle stations. Slipstream flickered into existence directly above the outpost, and within moments, its weapon systems were unleashed. Ion cannons targeted the outpost's communication arrays, while railguns fired at their defense turret. The outpost's shields flared, struggling to hold against the unexpected assault, but the Slipstream was relentless. A wave of missiles slammed into the power core, and the shields began to buckle. On board the Tharaxian ships, the warriors prepared for the assault. Clad in their armor, they were the epitome of discipline and strength. As soon as the Slipstream cleared the way, Tharaxian ships surged forward, moving into position for the boarding operation. Their docking clamps latched onto the outpost surface, and with a hiss of escaping air, the Tharaxian warriors breached the bulkhead. Inside, the Sovereign troops, a mix of the brutal Raskar, Unveils, and the relentless Chaska, scrambled to respond. Tharaxians stormed through the corridors, their weapons blazing, their battle cries echoing through the metal halls. They met fierce resistance, the Sovereign soldiers holding their ground with desperation, but the Tharaxians were relentless. A squad of Tharaxian warriors led by Commander Tarlok, a seasoned veteran with a reputation for fearless combat, made their way toward the command center. They moved with purpose, cutting through Sovereign troops who dared to stand in their way. Blaster fire filled the air, and the sounds of hand-to-hand combat echoed through the halls. The Tharaxians fought with a ferocity born of years of survival, their metallic blades flashing as they struck down their foes. Push forward, Tarlok shouted. Command center is just ahead. They breached the final door, charging into the command center. The Sovereign officers inside scrambled to defend their post. They were no match for the Tharaxians' determination. Within minutes, the room was secured. Tarlok and his team quickly began extracting data from the consoles, uploading information on Sovereign fleet locations, movements, and the worlds they had conquered. Charges set, one of his soldiers reported. Good, Tarlok nodded. We have what we came for. Fall back to the extraction point. They moved swiftly, retreating through the winding corridors of the outpost, engaging in skirmishes with any remaining Sovereign forces. Behind them, the charges were set, ticking down with a faint red glow. As the Tharaxian warriors reached their docking points, the Slipstream hovered in position, providing cover fire and disabling any defenses, tried to target their escape route. With all the teams safely aboard their ships, The Tharaxian vessels detached and moved away from the outpost. "All teams clear," Commander Voss reported. Quinn nodded. "Detonate the charges." A series of explosions rippled through the outpost, fire and debris spewing into space as the structure was torn apart from within. The combined fleet watched from a safe distance as the outpost collapsed into a ball of flame and metal fragments. Back on the Slipstream, Quinn allowed himself a small smile. "Mission accomplished. Let's head back to Thara." When the combined fleet returned to Thara, the mood aboard both the Slipstream and the Tharaxian ships was jubilant. For the first time in years, both species felt they had achieved a real victory against the Sovereigns. The data they had recovered was priceless. It provided insights into the Sovereigns' tactics, fleet sizes, and future targets. More importantly, it proved that the Sovereigns could be beaten. Emperor Zaros met with Admiral Quinn once more, this time with a hint of respect in his gaze. "You have proven yourselves, humans. You fought bravely, and you kept your word. Perhaps there is more to you than I thought." Quinn nodded. "Together, we can do much more. The Sovereigns are strong, but they are not invulnerable. We propose a more permanent alliance, to stand together against this common enemy." Zaros was silent for a moment, then extended his hand, a gesture not common among his people, but one that was unmistakably one of friendship. "An alliance, then. We shall fight together, side by side, and show the Sovereigns that the galaxy will not bow to them." Quinn grasped his hand firmly. "Together we will make them see." And so, under the strange skies of Thara, two species found a new hope. A hope that together they might one day turn the tide against the Sovereigns and reclaim their worlds. If you like this story, please like and subscribe. This series will have more to come, and the more likes for this story means future editions will be produced sooner than others. Thank you.